What's up, Rockstars? I have a huge news video for you guys. We got a ton to cover. Some big, I don't want to say controversies, but there's definitely some issues happening with some huge campaigns. There's new stuff to show you, of course. There's whole new platforms and just a lot to go over. So let's just dive right in. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that this channel is possible. If you appreciate videos just like this one and you can give even $1 a month, there is a link down in the description below. Thank you so very much. By the way, let me explain, I guess, the background a little bit. As you can tell, things are changing. I'm wrapping up, sending out the few games I have left to send out for the donation drive. Thank you so much for your support and your patience in that, by the way. Got Oathsworn, as you guys know, so already started painting. This was done with an ink. Just a brown ink, and that dyes it really well, and is way cheaper. That would have been like, with how big those trees are, it would have been like $8 if I'd used some kind of contrast paint or speed paint or something like that. So the big old ink bottle worked quite well there. So yeah, and anyway, I'm just gonna, we'll just get started. So yeah, there's a lot here. Let's start with Company of Heroes. Again, this is on the way to me. I will be unboxing this, and I'll let you know my initial thoughts on that as soon as I can. There's still 15 days to go, so plenty of time. But if you want to go in and dive in, if you want to go ahead and take a look at what they're doing here, feel free to. I think they are doing quite well. 723,000. If we go to their first one, right here, you'll see that it did 830,000 with 4,500 backers, whereas this one is at 4,000 backers. So I think a very strong second printing, and I think that's wonderful, especially with 15 days still to go, to already be kind of doing the same numbers as the first one. If it was like significantly less, you could tell that there wasn't a desire there, but there obviously is. And so I think in general, that's just a good sign, right? Anytime you see second edition or second printing, try and judge what are the backers saying? You know, are they excited for this? Are they not? Are they turning up, or are they not interested in it anymore? Always kind of a curious thing to see. So I always try to check that, but it seems to me that they are doing quite well. All right, next up we have Epic Encounters Local Legends. I've shown this off. This is only 4 days left to go at the time of recording. Over 200,000 raised. This is the first time they've done anything like this on Kickstarter. Normally these are straight to retail. There is some Bard Sung and stuff you can get. Actually, I think they've kind of made that more noticeable, at least to a small degree. So on this pledge level thing, you can see right here, all in pledge, $160. You get the Bard Sung stuff. That gives you the everything. You can actually get the Bard Sung only for, I think, a little bit less, $130 here, and you get 38 miniatures plus the adventure booklet and stuff that you need for that. So, I mean, it's $30 different, but if you don't need the D&D stuff, you don't need the D&D stuff. That being said, I would say if you're getting this, it's because you're into D&D and you want the adventure books and the profiles and everything else that they provide for these minis, not just the minis. That being said, 200,000 is, fine, of course, and they're going to do retail, and so they'll be doing retail just fine. So this is a success for them, I imagine, but it's nothing, like out there crazy or anything, especially for how expensive it is. Because, I mean, the core box is, let's see, you can get it as low as 45, but that's only 150 backers. Most people here are backing, let's see, we're right here at the all-in, right, which is about $160, which is a high amount. Now they're not adding a whole lot of add-ons, stuff like that, but yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see the spamming of the spamming of the campaigns and kind of what the turnout is in that. Again, it's kind of interesting to see. Are other people seeing this? Is there an issue there? Why why is it not exploding like a lot of D&D things or RPG things do, right? Obviously the Arena RPG did quite well. No, it had a whole bunch of board game stuff too. So there's a lot to go over here. It's just something I'm watching, something I'm asking myself as I look into these things. Next up, we have Cyberpunk 2077, Gangs of the Night City. There is now yet another expansion. They broke 500,000, so they're definitely over that. That means it's 65 hours to go. So if you were interested, link in the description below to this and everything else I'm covering. Check it out, see if it's something you want, and then back it. But now is the time to make that decision, okay? And again, you can do the whole dollar club thing if you're cautious about shipping and all that kind of stuff. But they added another $40 add-on. This is Motor Pool, where they add a whole bunch of really, really cool looking vehicles. I love the vehicles. The mech's cool, but honestly, I like the vehicles more than the mech, especially the the sleeker ones. But it has like a grav tank thing. It's got a motorcycle. It looks like it has a lot of really neat stuff there, which is super cool. I don't see any. I guess Kickstarter exclusive is the entire thing. So the whole thing is Kickstarter exclusive. And again, it's weird. I don't get their UI at all because it's not advertising that well. Normally you put a big old Kickstarter symbol in there and stuff like that. But if you're just looking through this, that's not the most noticeable thing. So it's kind of interesting to I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know why they're doing it that way. They should draw attention to that and let people know, hey, now's the time to do it. I'm not saying they should dive into FOMO. I'm saying they should communicate better, especially when it's something pertinent to backers. Like, hey, this isn't going to retail. If you want that, now's the time to get it. As unfortunate and FOMO-y as that is, it's the God's honest truth. Next up, we have Oathsworn Into the Deepwood second printing. There's like 1,000 more people signed up now than the last time I covered this, which wasn't long ago. They're almost at 3,000 signed up and just still going strong. Guys, I linked to my unboxing. I'll do that in the description. Both of them, non-spoiler and spoiler one. It's a big game. There's a lot. There's a lot. It's big. All right, next up, Nanolith Cyberpunk RPG board game. This one is coming up, and again, I will be showing this off in an unboxing. I'll let you guys know what I think as I get it, and so stay tuned for that. But it looks, again, I love the cyberpunk theme. It's why I have Cyberpunk Odyssey over there. It love the idea of that world kind of setting, and so excited to see their take on it here. All right, next up, we have a new one here. This is Anawak. This is kind of interesting. So it's a Mesoamerican warfare miniature strategy game kind of thing, right? They have this Facebook with a ton of different like minis and renders and stuff like that. I want to point out one funny one. And honestly, they're cool looking. I think they're cool looking and they're unique and they're different. And I really dig that. And so you can see some of their boards and stuff like that. And this dude has this big old hat here and this person's carrying a whole bunch of stuff there. And there's some wild stuff going on there, right? Which is super cool. But I wanted to point out this lady right here who they literally have the bowstring like caught in her chest, which I don't understand it. I don't get it. I've spoken with people who, well, that's a loud clap, teach archery or do archery, and you get that out of the way, you tape them down, you do what you need to do, but you're going to bruise the crap out of, like, she is going to be hurting. It's one of the more silly things I have seen in quite some time, actually, for miniature sculpts. I think some people just try too hard. And it doesn't make any sense. It looks dumb, in my opinion. And I like the style of everything else. Like, all this looks super cool. That was kind of a dumb decision. All right, next up we have the second printing of Foundations of Rome. This is going to be big. They have a new expansion coming. There's already 2,500 people signed up, and it's just gonna get bigger and bigger as more people see just how pretty of a freaking game this is. Because my goodness, does it look pretty? Yeah, again, it's the age of second printing here, where the big games are coming out, people are liking it, and so you're printing it again, you're improving things, you're adding an expansion, you're kind of doing whatever. Going back to that Oathsworn, by the way, they are still listening to feedback on what it is that they will all be providing here. Now, Oathsworn is feature complete. Okay, so they're not interested in adding scope or anything like that to it, but changing storage things or adjusting things here or there, or rule books, or like there's a whole slew of things that they can do. So if you have any feedback, if you have any ideas, reach out to them. They're swell guys, and they'll definitely listen to what you have to say. All right, next up, Flamecraft. Lucky Duck Games is actually taking this to retail. So I was looking at this before on Kickstarter, and now it looks like I can look at it at retail. That being said, it's the same price, but for less, obviously, right? So you don't get the Kickstarter exclusive stuff, but otherwise it's pretty much the same game for the same price. It was $40 on Kickstarter. It's $40 here. Kind of unfortunate. I was hoping to see a discount. There's a lot of savings to be had when it comes to retail, both in the bulk order and the fact that you're only shipping to one person, right? One distributor, as opposed to thousands and thousands of people and all this other kind of stuff, if that makes sense. And it's a printing on something that was already funded through Kickstarter. So a lot of the upfront costs when it comes to art and development and production and stuff like that are already paid for. So it's kind of interesting that they're not, I understand not undercutting it, but Kickstarter is more than just cheap price. It's exclusives and making it possible and all this other kind of stuff. So knowing how much cheaper it is to go to retail, it just seems so odd to still sell it for the same amount. Kind of bummed about that. So yeah, I mean, I guess it is what it is. Okay, this is Anastyr. They did an update about the shipping fee increase, and it did not go well. Let's discuss this. This is going to be a big thing. I might lead a little bit into a future video that I'll be doing on shipping, right? We'll cover it in more depth, right? People want a little bit more detail involved, so we can certainly discuss that. They are giving numbers, by the way, which is great. So, for instance, one of the things they talk about is like Jamie's game of Wingspan is very small, whereas they're bigger. As I said in my previous video, with like the Gloomhaven size box, it depends. But the bigger games that you made, the worse this affected you, if that makes sense. It affected you more. And Mythic Games are one of the biggest when it comes to making big games with giant boxes and tons of content and all that other kind of stuff. So that means it's really big. And then second mile, it's really heavy. And so you get this kind of 1-2 combo punch of increased prices and stuff like that. Now, all this talk about freight is almost always universally, especially when you're buying pretty much anything, not just even Kickstarters, included in the price of the product itself. They don't charge extra for it. So the only kind of significance you can take from that is it might take some profit from them, not that it should cost you more, if that makes sense. But moving on from that and into like their actual shipping costs, you can see here, this is the logistic cost from China to the distribution hubs. So this is the amount that they've been paying for, containers and stuff like that. And it looks like a big scary graph for all that. And I mean, the prices are pretty interesting, but they've been eating that, right? Like they never asked for extra shipping like the other companies. They just paid for it, right? And so like you can see stuff like this on how much more they paid it, right? For Joan of Arc 1.0, they paid an extra $397,000, right? For Solomon Kane 2, another $354,000. For Super Fantasy Brawl 2, which was just March of 2022, so just a little bit ago, they collected $175,000 and had to pay $426,000. Now, when it comes to something like Super Fantasy Brawl 2, and this is kind of the issue, right, is seeing this and then kind of critiquing, armchair quarterbacking, 2020 hindsight vision here, of course. You should have charged more. Like if you underestimated that much, that's bad. And they're saying these like subsidies, right? And they're saying it's essentially purposeful. In other words, they purposely lost this money to offer a great product at a good price, and then wanted to make up for it in volume. In other words, you're making far less, but you're selling a whole bunch more, as opposed to making a whole bunch but selling less, right? It's that, age old, which one's better kind of thing. The problem is Anastyr, and Anastyr underperformed according to them. It made, by the way, just to refresh, it made a little bit over $1 million to 5,500 backers. So one thing I want to point out is when I talked about, various debts that a company can have, or costs that a company can have. A lot of it is just, getting kind of too big, right? When times are good, you kind of grow and you become a bigger company, and you can hire this and hire that and do this and do that. And then when times are bad, you kind of have to slim up a little bit. And the fact that they can view something like a $1 million campaign with almost 6,000 backers as underperforming just goes to show the scale that they were used to operating in, and kind of where we're at now with these kind of big product stuff like that. But also as they're seeing this, right, and if this is such a big issue, well, you didn't have to make a huge Anastyr didn't have to be big. In other words, if that makes sense, it could have been closer to like their Hell campaign, where it's one big box and then an expansion. Bardsong did the same thing, right? So it's a lot less scope, a lot less upfront costs and stuff like that, and the shipping doesn't hit you nearly as hard. But again, it's not just shipping, right? It's the ability to sell and stuff like that. Now, the issue, there's a few issues still too, because they're launching on GameFound. And if you didn't know, and I want to communicate this because I think a lot of people don't, GameFound essentially has two different feature sets. If you launch on GameFound, in other words, if you have your campaign there, you add all of your products there, but obviously you don't have all the details on everything. And so you don't have to put in shipping information. If you use GameFound outside of it, in other words, if you're just using it for the Pledge Manager, when you launch your campaign or your Pledge Manager, you have to have shipping there up front. You do not get a choice. So that's the difference. If you see people not doing that, it's one of two things. Either they used to do a white glove treatment on support that they no longer do, or they would customize stuff. If you saw Easy Pay for Chronicles of Duergar, that's an example of that. Well, they will special do things just for you. And then additionally, if you launched on GameFound, you don't have to charge right away. But if you are using it as a Pledge Manager, it needs to be there day one. So they don't get a choice on that. And they've mentioned that before. However, nobody made them use GameFound either, right? And so it's this constant kind of like, well, yeah, this and then that, and yeah, this and then yeah. One of the things Mythic Games does, because they want a high quality product and all that, is they pay for better shipping, but they're paying that increased cost. Just like I can ship something to you the viewer right now, and I could choose to do it a really cheap way that you might not get tracking, it might not be the most padded, all this, all that. There might be some issues there, or I could put all the bells and whistles and you have to sign for it there, and you get a picture of it, you get tracking along the way, and so it's this really good company that tells you how many stops out they're at and all this other kind of stuff, right? That costs more. And it's the same thing with all these campaigns, not just Mythic Games, where there is a wide variety of quality and cost. And whereas when I ship something, I can choose if I want to do it cheap or not. We don't get that as consumers, right? We don't get to pick what Mythic Games chooses, or what Shadowborn Games chooses, or what CMON chooses, or what Monolith chooses, or any other company out there, right? Awaken Realms or anybody else. They ship how they decide to ship, and that cost is what they decide it costs. And then it's their decision to try and go cheaper or not, right? And that's, again, it's all simplification. There's so much involved here. But suffice it to say, that's kind of the issue, is people are finding an issue with the fact that it's being shipped early, or it's being charged early, even though we don't know what shipping is going to be there before, and all this other kind of stuff. One more thing that kind of came up here. The increased costs for Anastyr were communicated after the 100% refund 14-day. But it's something that they would have known about before. That is a big issue, and that's something I will call out. All the rest is just kind of preference and decision, and I can understand going one way or another, or blah, 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 right? Or it's just a crappy situation. But I am really big, and I want to start pushing more on being open, on being communicative of stuff like, when there's a shipping issue and the promptness of that, or when that, hey, refunds are about to, this is your last day to ask for a refund, 100%, where's that update, right? You get that for the Pledge Manager, you don't get that for the refund, which is, again, understandable, but as speaking on the consumer side of things, it's something that would be awful nice to have. So the issue is that they wanted to subsidize shipping here, and that's why the prices were what they were. But it was very obvious, even before the campaign ended, that they weren't going to have the numbers to do that. In other words, they didn't have the bulk to then take out the cut in the profit there, right? But it's not like they would have known that before the campaign even ended. Nonetheless, 14 days after, nonetheless afterwards. But it wasn't communicated. The shipping increases weren't communicated. The lack of subsidy wasn't communicated until after the refund period. And then it's a, hey, surprise, now you're kind of locked into a pledge and done that. And it's the same mistake CMON made. And you're starting to get the same kind of animosity from backers when decisions like that are made. When like us with our brains and saying what you're saying, it's like, well, you would have known about that sooner, but you didn't communicate it. You didn't write that update. You didn't mention that until it's afterwards. And while I won't go and label it necessarily as manipulative, because this is, I think, the first instance I've seen of Mythic Games doing it, it is definitely something I note and definitely something I will continue to track. We need to make sure to not time things in such a way to where surprise information happens after people feel some sunken cost or sunken loss or whatever that term is. So yeah, it's messy. Okay, speaking of messy, The Witcher Old World. So yeah, I was hoping this video would be a little bit more positive, but it's kind of ended on a sour note here. What is going on with The Witcher? Everybody loves The Witcher, right? Yeah, it's a hugely popular game. Again, they made a ton, 45,000 freaking backers. I mean, they did really well here. Shaded miniatures happened, and cheap shaded miniatures happened. So there's a bit about the big box and about the art and how it doesn't have Siri on it anymore or anything like that. And, I honestly, I don't care as much about that. And it's I think an easy fix for them. These shaded miniatures, I think, are the issue. So the issue is this. This is the render that you were shown when you bought the game. If you wanted to see somebody play with a prototype, or if they wanted to show off a nice fancy shaded version, this is a picture you got. That is a 3D resin printed miniature. So it's very nice, very close to the actual render. And it's all shaded, all pretty, with a painted rim even to make it nice and clean. And this is what we're shown as the shaded stuff now. Now, a few things here. The shaded did cost extra, so people paid for it. And this was what they were shown that they were paying for. A couple issues with that, right? First of all, the really poor camera. This is a big thing, and I don't think enough companies focus on this. If you take a crappy, fuzzy, out of focus, poor lighting picture, whether it's a render or whether it's an actual image of a physical product, if it doesn't look good, it makes your product look bad. It needs to be super high quality, super crisp, super just showing it in as great a light as possible. And a fuzzy image isn't it. However, there's a couple things here. First of all, the loss of detail. That is always the case, of course. But I mean, you can see it pretty heavy-handedly here, right? Where the ripples obviously aren't quite the same here, and like the bony finger with the raised knuckles are more just kind of a general shape here, and you'll see that kind of throughout where things just aren't quite as detailed as they were. That's very typical, of course, going from mass production plastic from a 3D printed resin, super ultra crisp stuff there. Overall, I think the quality is actually fairly okay. We're gonna look at an example of where I do have some concerns, but it seems definitely either hit or miss at the worst case. The wash that they did though is bad. So you'll see here that there is some thinosol priming or dry brushing, right? So she's much brighter up here, much darker down here. You see all the shadows here, and you see how much brighter she is here. There's a lot more care into the distribution of the wash, and overall, again, just a better process compared to what you have here. Like if you see the darkness here versus the darkness here in her dress, you can see the drastic difference. So what they did here, and I guess I should clarify, when you get like shaded minis from like Awaken Realms, when you get that Sundrop stuff, that is essentially a contrast paint. Is I think the closest you can think of it as, or a speed paint or whatever you want to call it, where it tints everything and it pools in there and it makes it all look really nice with one big coat. This is an ink wash, which is quite different. Ink will color the race parts a lot more than even a contrast will. It still pools and still gives you that look. But often you need to kind of almost wipe it clean if you want it to look clean, because a black ink wash will make it look dirty. It'll make it look messy. An issue they did here is they didn't even prime the minis. This is a raw mini with ink slapped onto it, and then it's kind of hastily cleaned. And the problem with that is like 1,000-fold. So it won't hold nearly as well. That's why you're seeing it kind of pull away from there and not like get in the recesses there, because it's not primed. If you've ever tried to paint onto a mini that's not primed, and when that primer is, it's not going to stick. You go there and it just disappears. It's gone. It's not sticking there. It doesn't adhere to it. It just fundamentally kills the entire process that they're trying to do here, actually. And to where you only get in like the extremes, and otherwise it's just completely washed out. Like if you see like on her chest, the subtle ridges there, and then you see they're barely even colored in there, right? Same with the feathers, of course, and everything. So we're gonna go look at here. One of my concerns is, of course, quality, right? I think overall they look okay, but I mean, if you look at this, like he's got, his normal fingers here. There's his thumb, but where's his thumb here? Now, granted, it's not the best picture. The f-stop here is far too small, and so it doesn't get that depth really well. So it's blurry here and a little bit blurry here, but maybe blurry. I think that's crisp though. That doesn't look blurry to me. In which case, where's his thumb? Like, did he only ever have 4 fingers on there? I mean, maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm just crazy, but to me that looks weird. And so there's some oddities like that. The biggest issue for me, and this is an issue Monolith will have sometimes as well, is curved bases. That breaks my heart. Do you see that little lift here? So the bases are not ABS, obviously. They're PVC, so they're bendy. But as they come out of the mold, if you're not careful, you'll get a little bit of a bend because it's still fairly warm when they do that, and they take it out and it bends slightly in one way based off of either from the injection itself, though typically that's pretty clamped down, but normally it's the removal of it that can cause stuff like that. But there's a handful of minis that have these kind of bent bases, and that again is it sucks. It really does, because the hot water treatment won't fix it. You're pretty much stuck with a bent base. A lot of these, though, still look like this looks a lot better with it. But you can see kind of that dirtiness and stuff like that. And a lot of it's because it's ink, and then it's on an unprimed mini. And so you get that kind of odd pooling and stuff like that. And you get that kind of dirtiness in other spots. So a lot of it, I think it looks okay. The application of it is kind of all over the place. Like if you take him, right, you can see like half his face is like dark. And again, it just looks dirty. And notice they don't even clean the rim very well, very often. Sometimes you can tell they give it maybe a quick wipe. So yeah, there's parts where it's bare plastic and parts where it's super pooled, and it's just kind of messy. And again, this is something people paid extra for. So definitely not the highest quality stuff. Definitely kind of a cheap way of doing it, in my opinion. So that's that. CMON bought more stuff. So they bought the IP to Trudvang, Lexicolium, and Rune Masters, all from Riot Minds. So they're like, hey, we're gonna invest in the Trudvang more, which is awesome. I think that's awesome. The Lexicolium, or whatever that name is more of a vampire one, and Riot Rune Masters is more of a high fantasy. It looks like more fun take on like Trudvang, but it's a fantasy-based thing. People have giant weapons and stuff like that. It can be kind of bright. So yeah, they're going to be doing more about it, which is interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of where that leads them. And then of course, Backerkit. I wanted to show you actually the beta of Backerkit. If you didn't know from my previous video, Backerkit is now doing Pledge Manager, or not just Pledge Manager, but crowdfunding itself. It's not just board game focused. So for instance, you have a passport here, and you have a fire pit, grill thing here, or a pins thing here, terrain, all sorts of stuff. The next big game to come out will definitely be this: Return to Dark Tower second printing and New Covenant expansion on Backerkit. That's in 22 days. So at the end of July, that'll be coming up. And you can kind of click on here and sign up and do all that kind of stuff. And again, their signups are still email based, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't like that. And then, of course, after that is the Gloomhaven. But then, I mean, we have a handful of other stuff coming out as well. Like Leader Games, they're coming out with one, and Unstable Games is coming out with one, and again, there's just a lot here coming. So Backerkit's gonna. I don't see it not being a thing, especially with the Gloomhaven thing. It's gonna be a thing. I don't really care for the UI at all with it right now. Like here, let's click on the pizza thing, and you can kind of see. So again, I mean, it looks like they just copied Kickstarter again. There's no super advanced really increment on different things. They got the updates and communities. This is the game found style, header tags where you can go to the add-ons and stuff like that, which I guess are fine. It just, not only does it look a little plain, if you ask me, but it's just nothing. It's still a big long scroll, just like always. That's kind of unfortunate. These are like how their updates look like. They do have GIFs, which is fun. Their chats are kind of cool because you can attach them here to various posts that are made, which are, I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess. But I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. It's different, and it looks pretty bare bones. This is the beta. Ideally, if I was me, it would be an alpha, and we'd add some more features, something that really makes it different and unique, and pushing the bar, and not just doing the same thing as everybody else. But anyway, that's it, guys. That's kind of where we're at right now. There's some cool games coming up. Of course, there's some issues with some of the most popular games we've had lately, and hopefully we can work through those and get it better. And by the way, there is a comment from the guys doing The Witcher saying like, "Hey, we'll resolve this. We'll talk with the manufacturer." So that's good. That's great to see that. Anyway, yeah, that's it. That's all I had. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to let me know about something, let me know in the comments below. And of course, check out all the stuff in the description. I linked to everything I covered here. And as always, have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys.